Okay, what we're gonna look at today is we're gonna look at force feedback, and what we're gonna look at and what we're gonna explore is the option of the steering gain versus in-game force feedback. Now, some people seem to think when you lower the steering gain, I'm gonna lower this to 65. Some people think that when you lower the steering gain, that and I'm gonna put this to in-game force feedback to 100. But they think by keeping the in-game force feedback at 100 and lowering the steering gain to 65, that you change the dynamics of the force feedback graph. And so we're just gonna explore that option and take a look-see and see what we see. They think that by lowering that steering gain, that you can reduce clipping, or that because the graph appears, the pseudo graph appears to be going, not to be going fully to the top of the screen, that you reduce force feedback, that you reduce clipping, in-game clipping or at-will clipping or whatever it is. They just seem to think that that's the way to go. Well, I'm going to show you that lowering that graph actually does, that is in fact what reduces the dynamic feel of your force feedback. Now, we have that graph set at 65, okay? Same in-car settings, same everything. But if you look at the graph, what we did was we moved it from off of the top of the screen. We did remove it off of the top of the screen, but you can clearly see that it's still a ceiling there. The lines are shorter. The graph will not rise above a certain level. Okay, it's not using the full perimeter of the box. Okay, you can see the ceiling right there. It's just no force is going above the highest peak that that graph is set to right now, because we set it to 65. Okay, so in fact the wheel feels much lighter right now. A lot of the force feedback effect still feels good, but it's much weaker. It's much weaker. Okay, a lot of the power in the force feedback is gone. I would have to go back and readjust it to try and get the same power level. So you see that the lines are shorter. It still is in fact an invisible ceiling there, because it will not use the full perimeter of the box. So actually the dynamic range of the force feedback has been reduced to using 65% of the box. Alright, see that? Let me hit them rumble strips. Let me hit one more rumble strip for you, and you can see. Pay attention to those spikes right there. Okay. Now what we're gonna do, we're gonna come out of there, and we're just gonna go set everything back to how I normally keep it. Now you can see where that reducing the steering gain could be useful if you have a wheel that's really suffering from clipping. See, I use the V2. I have a CSR Elite TX. None of them actually seem to be suffering from at-the-wheel clipping with the settings that I use. Okay, so here we go here again. Now we're gonna put steering gain. And that's actually a volume control for the wheel. It will control the level of force feedback. Okay, but it's just reducing the dynamic range to me. That's what it seems like it's doing. It's reduced it to using 65% of the dynamic range. Now, where is my... Oh, now, it's on 100. I'm used to seeing it at 35. Alright, now, we have my in-game force feedback to 35. Now we're going to go back to the same track. And we're going to have a looky-loo at what the graph does. Off from work today, you know. Sitting here playing PCars. I'm just off and decided to sit here and run some tests. And this is an interesting result. I think that this video would actually clarify or dispel a lot of myths and put some things into proper perspective. Okay. Same car. Now if you look at the force feedback graph, it's pretty much the same force feedback, but as you see, it's at the top now, and it goes to the bottom. So actually now, by keeping that steering gain at 100, I have full dynamic range of the force feedback. Watch this, watch these bumps. Now, do you see those bumps? Those are the bumps that I said to watch in the last one. Did you see they went full top to full bottom? Rumble strips, they're they're lively, but when you really hit some hard bumps, that graph is able to go full top to full bottom. Now hitting the same bumps with the steering gain reduced, the graph never reaches full top or bottom. See that? Full top, full bottom. So I have full dynamic range of all the force feedback. Not to mention, all of the wheel is marginally stronger. It is it's like twice the strength of what it was with the other setting. So if you really need to reduce your overall force feedback, I'm using a Fanatec wheel, so I got force feedback strength on the wheel. So if you really need to reduce your overall force feedback, you can reduce it by the steering gain, but then again you lose some of your dynamic range, force feedback range also. So for console, what I do is, if you really want to try and reduce your force feedback and not lose your dynamic range, I would play with the master in-game force feedback. As I say, I use my in-game master force feedback at 35. It gives me the strength that I need, and I'm not losing any dynamic range right there. So, in fact, the video does show that when you lower steering gain, that is where you lose dynamic range for force feedback, because it refuses to use the full graph. And let me know your comments and thoughts on this video. Again, this is just my thoughts. You see it on video. At 65% tire gain, you was only using 65% of that graph. It would not go top to bottom, but clearly you could see a ceiling and a bottom to it. Clearly, because the lines would not expand beyond a certain point to point. Using 100% tire gain, the force feedback goes full top, full bottom, and it's still that same ceiling there. And as long as you don't get any flat spots where that force feedback hits that top ceiling or that bottom ceiling, that bottom floor, and it just rides flatlining across there, you're not really getting clipping. So, this is, you see it for yourself. It's all in the video. And, post your comments. Let me know what your thoughts are.